Pacheco had a surgery on his shoulder.
Andy Reid just dropped a surprising bombshell today when he shared that running back Isiah Pacheco recently had shoulder surgery, and in this video, we'll discuss the severity of it and why it's looking like he will thankfully not need to go to IR if everything goes right. However, there are still some concerns there, so we got to talk about that, as well as the Chargers cleaning house after getting blown out by the Raiders, then preview this upcoming game against the New England Patriots, and much freaking more. But first, how about those? All right, first up, Chiefs Bids is back with another giveaway featuring this Super Bowl 57 football signed by Travis Kelce, but more on that in a bit because we first have to cover some very, very, very sad news, and that is the Chargers just fired head coach Brandon Staley and GM Tom Telesco this morning after one of the most embarrassing primetime losses in NFL history when they folded like a lawn chair in a Walmart parking lot on Thursday Night Football to the Las Vegas Raiders, losing 21-63. And no, that is not a typo. The offense lost 4 fumbles, with 1 being returned for a touchdown. They also had a pick 6, and on those 5 defensive turnovers, the Raiders turned that into 35 additional points, totaling 63 on the night after scoring just 0. A big, fat, nasty, disgusting, crummy little goose egg the week before. And with the defense playing so horrible, it's only natural to pin it on Brandon Staley because he not only called the defensive plays and runs the ship on that side of the ball, but he also made sure in a very dick-like manner that everybody knew so.
You guys act like we've never played good defense. That's not the truth. That's not the truth. You can stop asking that question, okay? I'm going to be calling the defenses, okay? So we're clear. So you don't have to ask that again.
And during his pathetic tenure with the Chargers, Brandon very mid-Staley finished 24-24 during 3 seasons with the team. And honestly, I'm surprised they held on to this man for most of the season, considering he should have been fired after blowing a 27-point lead in the playoffs last year. But whatever, Chargers do very Charger things, and it makes me very happy. Anyway, with Staley and their GM gone, the Chargers are now the second team to fire both their head coach and GM this season, with the only other team ironically doing that being the Raiders, who just blew them out. Boy, oh boy, have the scriptwriters been going crazy this year. And after those two were fired, the Chargers have named GIF or Jiff, one of those two, Smith, interim head coach, and JoJo Wooden is now the interim GM. And both of those names seem like they were auto-generated by ChatGPT and are more fake than their planted fans in the stands, considering there are barely any real Chargers fans on the face of planet Earth. But on a more of a serious note, you want to know who the current favorite to land on the Chargers as the new head coach in 2024? Bill freaking Belichick, who is reportedly being let go from the Patriots at the end of this season. However, I hope Bill decides to hang it up and retire and not come to the AFC West to lose twice a year to KC and Patrick Mahomes. And with that, the Chiefs will now be facing both the Raiders and Chargers before season's end, and both teams now have a backup QB, with Herbert needing surgery on the index finger of his throwing hand, and then with Las Vegas, both coaches were fired a while back, and they then quickly, rightly so, benched Jimmy mid Garoppolo. Then KC also plays the Bengals, who have a backup in Jake Browning, with Burrow out for the season, though the Bengals are still playing great football. And finally this week, they are most likely, talking about the Chiefs, playing against Bailey Zappi after Mac Jones just recently got benched himself. So yeah, very interesting things going on out here for the rest of the season, but the Chiefs must win out if they want any hope of getting the 1 seed in the AFC. On top of that, the Ravens will need to lose at least 2 of their last 4, and the Dolphins still need to lose 1 more, even though they thankfully just lost to the Titans in insane fashion on Monday Night Football. In conclusion, the 1 seed is definitely possible, but again, the Chiefs cannot afford to lose another game. Next up, Chiefs Bids is back with another sponsored giveaway of this Super Bowl 57 football signed by Travis freaking Kelce. And where you need to go for your chance to win this football is directly to the official Chiefs app, then head into the bids portion where you can find signed memorabilia that's updated all the time, featuring former and current players such as Patrick Mahomes, Trent Green, Isiah Pacheco, Will Shields, Willie Roaf, Jerick McKinnon, and so much more. They even have mystery boxes that may include a golden ticket for even more signed merch, which is exactly how I got this signed Travis Kelce jersey. So make sure to stay tuned for some exclusive holiday mystery boxes coming soon. Anyway, to enter for your chance to win this signed signed Travis Kelce's Super Bowl 57 Duke Ball hit filter when you're in the bids portion of the Chiefs app at the top right. Select giveaways and the football will immediately pop up for you. And if you don't want to use the app, even though it is the easiest and most preferred way, you can also click the link at the top of my description to go to their website and enter that way as well. Either way you choose, make sure to fill out your profile, including a shipping address and card info, because the winner will have to pay for shipping, which is still an absolute steal for this signed Super Bowl 57 helmet from the best tight end in the game. All right, did you guys know that Patrick Mahomes is one of only 3 of the top quarterbacks in rushing yards this season that has 0 rushing touchdowns? It's not the biggest of deals, I guess, at the end of the day, but it's pretty odd and I find it kind of interesting. The only other 2 to have 0 on this list are Zach Wilson and Bryce Young, but of course, Mahomes is the most surprising to me for a few reasons. First off, he currently has 339 rushing yards this season, which is actually 7th of all QBs in the NFL, and averages one of the highest yards per carry out there when running out of any QB in the league. However, he is also the only quarterback in the top 10 that has 0 rushing touchdowns, which is pretty wild considering the average amount of rushing TDs scored by quarterbacks in the top 10 is 5. On top of that, Mahomes has ran in at least 2 touchdowns every single year he's been a starter and had 4 rushing touchdowns last year in the regular season. All of these, by the way, were scored in the red zone, being ran in for 14 yards or less each time, which brings up another interesting factor about the Chiefs' decline in the red zone this season, as they were ranked 2nd last year, but 14th this year for a variety of reasons, but this certainly plays a small role. And speaking of the offense and their lack of output this season compared to others, Matt Nagy was recently asked about these struggles and what holding players accountable looks like to him as the offensive coordinator, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, there's discussions in the building. And again, I'm not going to get into how or what. I would just say that our coaches on staff and myself and Coach Reed, every player's different on how they handle being coached. And so there's a little bit of that too with how you handle certain guys. But in the end, we got to make sure that the product out there is scoring touchdowns and winning football games.
He then went on to say that Mahomes leads super well and knows the difference on how to handle criticism of one player versus how to handle it with another, because they all take it different ways. And then he noted there's so much more going on behind the scenes that we don't get to see in the public eye. So don't think just because Mahomes is typically calm and reserved on the sideline during games for 3 hours doesn't mean he's not having tough conversations with players hidden from the public eye. Same goes for the coaches. So I guess while some fans would like to see more fire on the sideline from the coaches as they get onto players like Eric Bieniemy used to do, for example, and like defensive line coach Joe Cullen recently did with Chris Jones, I don't think we're going to see much of that in the public eye. Whether that's good or bad, it just is what it is. And hopefully, fingers crossed, the Chiefs offense can eliminate some of the mistakes they've been making off and on all season long. Drops, penalties, miscues, turnovers, you name it, it's happened. Though in theory, these things are indeed correctable. That's what they keep saying. Therefore, can we just start to see these little things get corrected, even if it's just a little, a wee little bit? Please, as a borderline depressed Chiefs fan holding on to his sanity with tank 7s and multiple cups of black coffee due to losing a lot of sleep at night, I beg of thee. And as far as the Patriots are concerned, they aren't the best team in the world, being just 3-10 on the season, but defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo does not care what their opponent's record is, as they have too much respect for Belichick and company to take this team lightly. Spags continued saying that in games they get the running game going, that's when the QB becomes more of a threat. So there's definitely a desire to limit the run game, which is something that the Chiefs defense has struggled against this year, being 20th in rushing yards allowed. But thankfully, they are 3rd in points per game allowed, tied for 3rd in sacks with 42, and allow the 6th fewest yards per game of any defense out there. Meanwhile, the Patriots are dead last in points scored on offense, averaging just 13 points per game. Yikes. However, they just put up 21 last week with Bailey Zappi for what it's worth, so maybe the tides are changing, though hopefully for this Sunday, not much. Now, KC's offense is a unit I do hope changes a little bit more than usual, as they've averaged just 17.8 points per game on offense over the last 6 games, losing 4 of the last 6, and they've now dipped down to the 11th best scoring offense. They were 1st last year, for context. They are also now 14th in the red zone and 17th in rushing yards per game, and with Isiah Pacheco being ruled out yet again, that makes it even tougher sledding in the run game, though the offense still does average the 7th most yards per game and are 5th best on 3rd down, touchdowns for what it's worth. And while the Patriots are just 3-10, Andy Reid knows their defense is the real deal. They allow just 20.9 points per game, the third fewest rushing yards of any team, are the 11th best on third downs, and 6th best in the red zone, allowing a touchdown only 46% of the time. Defensively, Andy Reid said the Patriots do a lot of stuff and are going to give you a ton of different looks that's tapered to KC's offense. The Patriots will be ready, and it's a tribute to the greatness of Bill Belichick, who, by the way, is a mere 82-98 without Tom Brady. Just throwing it out there. Patrick Mahomes, though, said that Belichick knows QB's tendencies and will adjust small things to kind of disguise them and try to exploit these QB's weaknesses, and that's why he's been so successful as a defensive-minded head coach over the years. As far as my thoughts on the game go, I'm going to roll with the Chiefs getting the freaking W, winning by an insanely high score of 20-10. Hopefully it's not that close. They put up more points than that, but they need to prove it to me. Do it this Sunday, please. The Chiefs will also need to find a way to get the run game going without Pacheco against a team who's typically great at stopping the run. Then Mahomes and company need to find ways to score in the red zone against a great red zone defense, something that's been quite the struggle at times. We just need a clean game. No turnovers, limit the penalties, a couple less drops and miscues, and they should be set up for a successful, convincing W. On the other side of the ball, Spags wants to match or be better than the Patriots' top-ranked defense to help the team win. Part of that is early on in the game. He doesn't want to see KC quickly go down 14 points like they've done in some of the recent games, and they also got to match the physicality of the Patriots brought forth from the leadership of Belichick. We will definitely need a solid Nick Bolton game as well, but he's been limited this week in practice due to the wrist injury he sustained and just came back from IR for, as well as his abdomen being listed. So time will tell there how many snaps he actually plays on Sunday, because I'm pretty sure he wasn't even given a full go last week in his return from IR. Another player that I hope steps up again is the rookie DB, Chamari Connor, who saw some increased playing time on defense with Brian Cook on IR, and he recorded his first ever interception against Josh, the turnover merchant, Allen. And earlier this week, I thought Chamari was going to be needed even more on Sunday with safety Mike Edwards being out during practices because of an illness on Wednesday and Thursday, but Andy Reid said he returned today and did indeed practice. And while that is some good news, Andy Reid did share that Donovan Smith, the team's starting left tackle, is still not practicing due to the neck stinger he's been wrestling through over the last few weeks, which means the rookie, Wanya Morris, should once again get the green light to start as left tackle. And honestly, he's been playing pretty well, and I'm excited about that. Andy then noted that while Justyn Ross was back and practicing this week, running reps with the scout team, he won't be back on the roster for Sunday's matchup. Andy Reid confirmed that Ross will remain on the exempt list this week, and then, quote, "If we're going to do something, we'll do it next week." Andy did say, though, that he looked good at practice this week, moved around well, and it was good for him to get back out there. So, no Justyn Ross, which isn't a surprise. And finally, another no surprise is the fact that Isiah Pacheco is out. He didn't practice again today, which makes this his second week in a row of not practicing, and made me know that whatever was going on with Pacheco was more than the initial proclamation of a shoulder contusion, i.e. shoulder bruise. So again, it's no surprise Pacheco won't be playing based on him not being at practice all week again, but Andy Reid did drop kind of a bombshell of a surprise today at the beginning of his presser when he told everybody that Pacheco recently had to undergo another surgery on the same shoulder he had off-season surgery on and had some things taken out that were floaters in there. So, well, that's not ideal and freaking sucks to hear. It sounds like it was more of a cleanup on that same shoulder he had repaired in the offseason, which is why Andy then said he's doing well, moving around good, and anticipates getting him back next week for practice. He did the walkthroughs this week, but should be back and going at practice next. And whether or not that means Pacheco will be a full go, I doubt it, or will be limited and then possibly not play next week still remains to be seen, but Andy did make it seem like IR is not really being considered for Pacheco at the moment. And while the exact reason for surgery is still unknown, a trusted source in Jesse Morse of the Fantasy Doctors said the good news is that it sounds like he did not re-tear his labrum enough to have to repair it again, and his suspicion is that Pacheco had a bone spur dislodged after a big hit 2 weeks ago, and this was wreaking havoc in his shoulder. Therefore, this needed to be arthroscopically removed to help with pain and prevent damage to his cartilage. He then noted that any debridement or repairs would have been season-ending, and since this was just a simple removal, he thinks a Week 16 return is realistic, which is a pretty freaking quick turnaround. I did also message Dr. Jesse about this, and he said that this surgery on Pacheco isn't super clear, and he also mentioned in a comment he's worried about the fact that Pacheco had another surgery on the same exact shoulder as the offseason. So, while I'm no doctor, I wouldn't even be surprised if the Chiefs held Pop out a little longer than that, just to be safe and make sure he's clearly ready for the postseason run rather than rushing him out there too soon. But we will just ultimately have to wait and see. And with all that being said, what are your thoughts on Pacheco needing surgery again on the same shoulder? How concerned does that make you right now? Maybe even for his future, because he's already had 3 surgeries now since being in the NFL. And then when do you think he's likely to return? Let me know your thoughts on all that in the comments down below. Before we get out of here, the final injury report for Week 15's matchup between KC and New England looks as follows. For the Chiefs, Pacheco and Donovan Smith are the only 2 ruled out, with nobody else having any sort of game designation other than Justyn Ross, who's listed as doubtful, but Andy Reid already said he's not coming back. And then some good news there on Leo Chenal and Mike Edwards, who were out part of the week due to sickness, but they came back strong. No game designation there. And then Bolton, who was limited earlier in the week, Wednesday, Thursday, but was a full go today on Friday. Good news there. And with Pacheco out, I would think we see Deneric Prince elevated from the practice squad for his 3rd and final time. And then for the Patriots, they have just 1 player ruled out. Running back Ramondre Stevenson, with a plethora of players listed as questionable, including 3 receivers in Devontae Parker, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Tyquan Thornton, among a few others. Anyway, that's all for today. So on your way out, don't forget to enter for your chance to win that signed Kelce football. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?